Greetings, Rob, and all our imagination connoisseurs out there. Dieter here, doing what? Doing another video. Rob, first things first, thank you very much for visiting my friend Patrick's YouTube channel and that you left a very nice comment about his first review of a hot toy figure. That meant the world to both of us, so thank you for that. He's working on his next review. Hope it will be out in a couple of days. You've got a shock to the system this week, and I was a little hopeful about that. Not because it was nice for you, but I was hoping that the 400th show would align on Sunday, April 26th. But you have that Comic-Con coming up, so it is on Monday. But you always give us specific dates when you first saw Star Wars, Aliens. You have already that specific date that you gave us. And on Star Date Sunday, April 26th, will always be a special date for me, because in 1986, 34 years ago, it was the first time I saw Ronnie James Dio live with the Sacred Heart Tour.
Yeah.
I would say it was the peak of his commercial success, with the huge stage production, with the dragon, the lasers, and everything. Of course, it was shrunken down for the European venues because we don't have that huge stages that you have in the US. But it was that gigantic tour, and on Sunday I will remember it. And of course I will remember the support act. One of my favorites of the 80s, it was Keel. And this CD, because no one buys CD anymore, yes, some do.
I do. I buy CDs.
Came out last year, remastered. Rob, I can't tell you how ghibli I was when I browsed on Amazon and I saw what is coming
Deutschland, Dieter.
Because I didn't have that album as a CD, and now it was re-released last year. I couldn't be happier. But let's get the inlay out, because I want to show you the shiny cover of the
This is the great
album.
Dieter Bastian, imagination connoisseur
Rob,
par excellence.
How is the album? What is the title of the album? The Final Frontier. Man, come on. So Keel was the supporting act. The album was produced by Gene Simmons, by the way. And I thought to myself, what could I do with that specific date and Ronnie James Dio in combination with your show? So my wacky brain thought of something in combination with Ronnie James Dio songs. So let's see what did I come up with. But I have written it down, couldn't remember all that stuff, one foot in the grave. So let me just tell you, in combination with some of Ronnie James Dio songs, what do I think about your show? Even if you're not the king of rock and roll, Rob, and sometimes perhaps a mystery to me, none of your imagination connoisseurs feels like the last in line when you're reading the letters or playing their videos. Some would even say you're our rainbow in the dark, and no matter how hungry for heaven we are, you make sure to give us a little help too. Rob, our holy diver into everything concerning Star Trek, will stand up and shout for us as the man on the silver mountain of verisimilitude. So Rob, long live rock and roll, and remember what I told you. Don't talk to strangers on Twitter about Star Trek Picard. That only brings out your evil eyes. You may call us imagination connoisseurs, but we're your rock and roll children too. So let's find the courage to cross the Rainbow Bridge, and we may all find the Sacred Heart. And of course, Rob, it's the Japanese edition. Okay? So, and to close it with some lyrics from Ron Keel, which brought an album out last year. He's still with us. Ron, you're still kicking ass. And the album last year was fantastic. So Rob, let me close with famous lyrics from Ron Keel, even if it may elude you from your snobbish ivory tower of pop music playing that Prince tambourine, looking down at all those headbangers. You've got it. the right to rock. Greetings.
Well, greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Let me just thank Dieter Bastian, all the way from Deutschland, Dieter, shiny Deutschland, for giving us that wonderful video. You know, every time Dieter drops a video, I do get Ghibli. I get Ghibli. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, I am, of course, your Duke of Dope Discourse, your Viceroy of Verisimilitude, your Master of Fun and Wonder, your Sommelier of Cinema, and of course, as we all know, oh wait, let me do this again, your existential Mr. Rogers, your Chancellor of Cheerfulness, your Archbishop of Banterbury, Robert Meyer Burnett. And we are here, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, we are, all gentle beings from the 28 known galaxies. We're here for Robservations, the show about something. And I am robcasting at you. I can rock, Dieter. I can totally rock. I am robcasting at you from this, the Robservatory. You imagination connoisseurs, you members of this, the Post-Geek Singularity community. This would be Robservations episode 399, straight from my engagement at the Mainframe Comic-Con. I was really honored and privileged to just interview Andy Park from he's the director of visual. He's the man who actually designed the Ant-Man suit for the Ant-Man films. Really, Andy Park, amazing. Director of visual development, Marvel Studios. Tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen, if you did not watch me today, just it's a free online Comic-Con. They are raising money for the Red Cross. This would be me. I am going to be doing 3 panels tomorrow. 3. And you can just watch live. The first, my God, is this cool? Lloyd Kaufman. That's right, Troma. Troma's Lloyd Kaufman, president of Troma Entertainment. That would be 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. I will be moderating a half-an-hour discussion with Lloyd Kaufman. I mean, he created the Toxic Avenger. We're going to discuss movies, horror, and Troma now. Not to be outdone. Oh my God, am I honored to do this. Check it out. I am going to be moderating a discussion with J.M. DeMatteis. Oh, I love J.M. DeMatteis. He is amazing. Craven's Last Hunt, Moonshadow, Justice League International. My God, has he written a lot of great comics. Big fan. And then, right afterwards, I'm going to interview the president of the Writers Guild of America, as we all know him as David Goodman, also a writer on Star Trek Enterprise and a writer-producer on The Orville. That is right, ladies and gentlemen. And also, he wrote the autobiography of James T. Kirk and the autobiography of Jean-Luc Picard. And I will be interviewing him and David Cabeza about their new Orville comic. That is tomorrow. So join us. It's free. They're looking for donations for the Red Cross and their COVID-19, everything they're doing. So that's it's pretty incredible. I have to say I feel very honored and humbled, honestly, that they asked me to moderate. And WonderCon's gone, the San Diego Comic-Con is gone. So to be a member or a participant in this, it was really, really nice. And I want to thank them. I think they're doing a great job. It's going on now. Don't leave now. Don't leave now. But yeah, it was a lot of fun, and I think what they're doing is great, and it's half an hour. So but just when you're getting into it, boom, you're out. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you know, I've been working on the 400th show. Obviously, I have 5 different interviews for you today. 5, my God, 5 interviews. Of course, actress Barbara Crampton, filmmaker Carrie David, the creator of Star Trek Discovery and Hannibal, Brian Fuller, one of my idols, comic artist Bill Sienkiewicz, and of course, the writer of one of the greatest episodes of Star Trek The Next Generation ever, The Measure of a Man, that the entire Picard series was based on, Melinda Snodgrass. And I've interviewed all of them. They're pre-recorded. I've already recorded them, and you will be seeing snippets, not snippets, but you'll be seeing chunks of that interview. Like Bill Sienkiewicz's interview is 2 hours long. So I'm going to play about a half an hour segment, and then I will be releasing the interviews in their entirety on the Burnettwork, also as podcasts. The Robservations is now available as a podcast so far on Anchor, but it'll be available at other places as well. Everyone wanted these available as a podcast. I heard you, and I have made it happen. So, oh my God. I found an article. One of my favorite magazines of all time was Wired. I always saw Wired as sort of it replaced Omni in my life, but I've been reading Wired since, I want to say, like 30 years. It's an incredible magazine. I don't really buy it anymore. It's now more online than anything else. But whenever I'll tell you one thing. Whenever I travel and I'm in an airport, I always buy the latest issue of Wired magazine. Always, always, always. And they had an interesting article that I stumbled across. I don't know why I didn't see it earlier, but I thought that I would share it with you all because, I love movies about the apocalypse. I love movies about the end of the world. Whether it's an asteroid destroying end of the world, whether it's like 2012 and it's a strange planet passes by. And I think maybe that was ingrained in me because I've often talked about my love of George Pal. And when I was a kid, I have often said this, and the fact that the Criterion Collection is releasing this, I put War of the Worlds. George Pal made 3 of my favorite movies of all time. But my first favorite movie of all time was War of the Worlds. And when I saw it on Channel 11 Sci-Fi Theater, I just thought it was the greatest thing I'd ever seen. And I've talked about this a lot, but not only is the design work, the Martian war machines in War of the Worlds and the sound effects, to this day, the film it came out in 1953. Still holds up. And in 2018, they did a 4K restoration of it. So I thought, great. I can finally buy it on my beloved physical media format. I can get a 4K disc of War of the Worlds. Nope. They only released it on iTunes. And yeah, you can download it, but I want my physical media. That's what I want. Didn't get it. There is a company in Australia that announced that they're finally putting it out on Blu-ray. I pre-ordered that. Come on, you got to pre-order it. But then Criterion announced they too are releasing War of the Worlds. And I consider War of the Worlds perhaps, it's apocalyptic, but George Pal also produced When Worlds Collide. And it was, in a way, I felt like When Worlds Collide and War of the Worlds were kind of in constant rotation on Channel 11 in Seattle when I was a kid. There was also Conquest of Space, which wasn't as good. It was about a manned trip to Mars, but still awesome because when I was a kid, an astronaut gets hit in the face in his faceplate by a micrometeorite. Well, it's not really micro, but and I was like, oh my God. But Conquest of Space made me, the idea of real space travel. And when I was a kid, I was very aware. I used to know the name of all the astronauts. I don't now. But space travel is a big deal. But I loved, When Worlds Collide, there was Bellos and Zyra, and the Earth was going to be destroyed, and they had to build a space ark, and they were going to save, the sheep and seeds and 50 people. So when I was a kid, the idea of the apocalypse, not the apocalypse from the book of Revelation, but obviously we use that apocalypse, meaning the end of the world. I just assume apocalypse to me it's not about necessarily the four horsemen and all of that happening, but an apocalyptic event, end of the world, whether it's Armageddon, whether it's Deep Impact, whether it's War of the Worlds, whether it's Independence Day, whether it's Earth Abides, if you're going to talk about literary. I mean, there's The Stand, very apocalyptic, although humanity prevails. There's something about the idea of the end of the world, which has always been endlessly fascinating for me. And you can't help but think in the times that we live in now. I mean, pandemics are, not going to lie, kind of a fan of stories about diseases or pandemics. I've always loved them. I always will love them. And there was a Wired article that dropped, and I thought I would share it with you because I thought it was interesting. Again, because I love Wired. So allow me, gentle beings, members of the Post-Geek Singularity, you, imagination connoisseurs, let's delve into this article. And hold, please. I'm going to have to put my readers on. I left some of them in the... Anyway. This article was written by Lori Penny, and it was published on March 30th, I think, or maybe not. This is not the apocalypse you were looking for. Pop culture has been inundated with catastrophe porn for decades. None of it has prepared us for our new reality. I mean, this dropped in March 30th. We're now, it's April 25th. It's almost a month later. Anyway, the shock itself is shocking. Shouldn't we have been more prepared? Hasn't culture been drenched in catastrophe porn for decades? The bomb, the breakdown, the fallout, the senseless armies of shambling corpses, all the nightmares of dead generations sliding out of our screens. For more than a decade, young and young-ish people have been living in anticipatory grief for everything we know. But somehow, this is different. The idea of imminent, annihilating catastrophe has been part of the collective unconscious for as long as we've had one. From the end date of the Mayan calendar to the Epic of Gilgamesh, from the Genesis flood to the Book of Revelation, humans have been haunted by the idea of the end of everything for a very, very long time. Lastly, it's been our default popular entertainment. Raised with the threat of global warming in the teeth of a financial crisis, we sat stunned and exhausted, watching our civilization die on screen again and again. More post-apocalyptic entertainment has come out in the beginning of this century than in the entirety of the last one. The Day After Tomorrow, Zombieland, The Walking Dead, The Road, Children of Men, The Last of Us, the same story again and again. Somewhere between wish fulfillment and trauma rehearsal, getting us used to the idea that the future was canceled, that someday soon everything would collapse, and there would be nothing left and nothing we could do about it. Ever since I was a twitchy, morbid child, I've kept a private tally of things I thought I might miss most when the world ended, so that I could be sure to enjoy them as much as possible. Hot showers, pottering around the shops, bananas. I didn't anticipate being a survivor in any country where bananas grow. In fact, I didn't anticipate being a survivor at all. I am a puny, sensitive creature, and my best hope was that my tall and intimidating sister would sling me over one shoulder while blowing up the baddies one-handed. I just assumed we'd be together, not stuck on different continents. Funny how things turn out. COVID-19 changed everything. Suddenly, the immense and frightening upheaval, the cataclysm that means nothing can go back to normal, is here. And it's so different from what we imagined. I was expecting Half-Life. I was expecting World War Z. I've been dressing like I'm in the Matrix since 2003. I was not expecting to be facing this sort of thing in snuggly socks and a dressing gown, thousands of miles from home. trying not to panic and craving a proper cup of tea. This apocalypse is less Danny Boyle and more Douglas Adams. There's an important difference between apocalypse and a catastrophe. A catastrophe is total devastation, with nothing left and nothing learned. Apocalypse, especially in the biblical sense, means a time of crisis and change, of hidden truths revealed, a time quite literally of revelation. When we talked about the end of every certainty, we were not expecting any revelation. We were not expecting it to be so silly, so sweet, and so sad. It's easier to imagine the end of the world than the end of capitalism. That's the slogan that swarmed around the world 10 years ago during the Occupy movements, attributed variously to Frederick Jameson and, forgive me for my pronunciation, Slavoj Žižek. I first had it explained to me by overexcited, underslept young activists who, like the rest of us, had spent their lives watching New York and London and Washington and Tokyo blow up and burn down on screen, but had never had space to imagine a future that did not include decades of striving to service lifelong debt. Capitalism requires this of us. Capitalism cannot imagine a future beyond itself that isn't utter butchery. This is because late capitalism has always been a death cult. The tiny-minded incompetents in charge cannot handle a problem that can't be fixed simply by sacrificing poor, vulnerable, and otherwise expendable individuals. Faced with a crisis they can't solve with violence, they dithered and whined and wasted time that can and will be counted in corpses. There's been no vision, because these men never imagined the future beyond the image of themselves on top of the human heap cast in gold. For weeks, the speeches from podiums have suggested that a certain amount of brutal death is a reasonable price for other people to pay to protect the current financial system. The airwaves have been full of spineless right-wing zealots so focused on putting the win in social Darwinism that they kept accidentally saying the quiet bit out loud. The quiet bit is this. To the rich and stupid, many of the economic measures necessary to stop this virus are so unthinkable that it would be preferable for millions to die. This is extravagantly wrong on more than just a moral level. Forcing sick and contagious people back to work to save Wall Street puts all of us at risk. It is not only easier for these over-promoted imbeciles to imagine the end of the world than a single restriction on capitalism, they would actually prefer it. The right, of course, has never had a monopoly on catastrophist fever dreams. The idea of a cleansing Armageddon that instantly erases all of the awkward parts of modernity, all the weary years of work and compromise between where we are and where we'd like to be is universal and universally childish. I've spent far too much time listening to drunk hipsters with retro Soviet facial hair tell me there's no point in feminism or anti-racism because all of that will be fixed after the giant, bloody workers' revolution that is absolutely on the way, so really it doesn't matter how we treat each other in the present. You can hear the same gleeful anticipation in the rhetoric of dark green eco-fundamentalist groups, which right now are outpacing religious extremists in their rush to claim the coronavirus as nature's revenge on humanity. If you are really so keen to be punished, there are websites for that. If you find yourself eager to see the whole species punished, that's not a fetish, that's fascism. Social democracy is being reinstated in a hurry because, to paraphrase Mrs. Thatcher, there really is no alternative. In the U.S., states are scrambling to support the 3.5 million workers who filed for unemployment in a single week. Remember, this article was written a month ago, 25 days ago. There's a lot more than 3.5 million workers now. London's homeless population, which had doubled in a decade, has been eradicated overnight. The National Health Service has run out of protective gear for doctors and nurses, and the British government has been too slow to restock, but a medical fetish porn site instantly donated its entire stock of scrubs and masks because this is a big emergency and we're all doing what we can. Let me tell you, man, I love that article because it perfectly encapsulated where we are at. And where we were at is, I'll tell you, where we are at is in a place where I am seeing more creativity, more positivity, more people coming together, more people having fun, and more people in the face of death and the face of what could be horrific. I choose to see, and I choose to believe, that there is more going on. There is more going on right now that I have seen across the board to make me think that, you know what? Maybe, just maybe, we human beings, we have something going on. You know? I think things are not as bad. I mean, look, many people have lost their lives. I have tweeted myself that in the next week, we will have lost more people in the United States on American soil from COVID-19 than died in the Vietnam War, that Americans perished. The United States military calls that number 58,220 American souls were lost in Vietnam. We are going to surpass that level. And that was in the entirety of the Vietnam War. But on the other hand, I have to say that I am constantly reminded of how wonderful we can be. And as a race, as individuals, and as people that can dream. And I think that one of the things that this is our economy wrecked. Basically, America right now is a ship that has been smashed on the rocks, and we're on the shore line of some nameless island wondering what's going to happen. But on the other hand, I think that what's going to happen is that we are all very quickly going to get back to work once things are safe. And I see that maybe we needed this, but I do see that there's amazing creativity going on, as evidenced by the thing that I just participated in, the actual online Comic-Con, put together very quickly, guest speakers, really interesting people from all walks of entertainment, comics, movies, television. These guys just threw it together. They're raising money for the Red Cross. I think ultimately that all of us in the imagination connoisseur space can understand that maybe I always want to look at the good in all of these things, that we are seeing, hopefully, our future. We're seeing people band together. We're seeing people on an international level using our modern technology. I watched Jimmy Kimmel interview Chris Hemsworth. Sure, was Chris Hemsworth promoting his new Netflix film Extraction? Yes, he was. But the fact that we have the technology where Chris Hemsworth can be at home and he can have Thor's hammer in one hand and Stormbreaker in another because they're just there in his house, it's pretty amazing. And if one thing has happened, or if one thing we can take out of all this, of all the tragedy, of all the people, 1 million people are going to be infected in the next couple days, you got to look at this as, I think, a time where there must be a positive aspect to this, and I choose to see that. And the positive aspect is that I think it's shown, whether the Rolling Stones release a new song, you know, they recorded it last year, it just hadn't been released yet. They released it with a new video, and it became more relevant than ever before. How old are the Rolling Stones? They're still making music, and I like that song. It's pretty kick-ass. It's just like the Rolling Stones. It's and they put it out. And I think we're seeing everybody rise up, and we're seeing, I think, hopefully, that going through this experience, I think that the world is actually going to be a better place. So I'm pretty stoked about it, to be honest. I'm pretty stoked to see where we're going in another month or another 6 months or another year. Is it a bitch right now? Yeah, it sucks. People are out of work. People are wondering what the hell is going to happen. But I choose to believe. I choose to look forward. And I think we're going to get through this. And I think we are going to be the better for it. Anyway, just something I was thinking today when I read that Wired article. And I thought I would share it for you. It also, to be honest, made me want to go watch humanity destroyed by the aliens, by the Martians in War of the Worlds, by the even more formidable aliens in Independence Day, or whether it's, I mean, come on, we're going to look at Gerald Butler in Greenland, a comet. I think back to the catastrophic apocalyptic books I read as a kid. 6th grade, Larry Niven and Jerry Pournelle's Lucifer's Hammer. I've told that story, how I was so obsessed with that book, I couldn't stop reading it even when I was in class. It was taken away from me by Mrs. Ridenauer, my music teacher in the 6th grade. I had to go to Boyd Matson's office, the principal of Island Park Elementary School, and beg him to give me back Lucifer's Hammer by Larry Niven and Jerry Pournelle, because I was reading it in music class. And to be fair, I shouldn't have been. Mrs. Ridenauer was right. So, anyway, our apocalyptic fantasies are certainly fun to watch while we're sequestered at home, preferably in 4K. I wish I could get a 4K disc of War of the Worlds, but the 2018 restoration on Blu-ray is about as good as it's going to get for me. I could download it, but okay. Anyway, there's another article that I wanted to share, and it too is it's apocalyptic, but in a different sort of a way. And this article comes from Vulture, and once again, I'm going to have to put my glasses on to read it. This, ladies and gentlemen, is Paul Schrader, the man who directed last year's First Reformed with Ethan Hawke. He wrote Taxi Driver. He's made movies like Hardcore, and he's a great filmmaker in his own right, but he made American Gigolo with Richard Gere. And David Edelstein wrote this article on April 21st, and Paul Schrader was in the middle of making his new film, 20-day shoot, his new film that was curtailed. They ended the shoot 15 days in. He has his last 5 days to shoot because of COVID-19. And he basically says Paul Schrader does not have much hope for the future of movies, by David Edelstein. Oops, hang on. I'm not doing a good job at showing. Oh, really? Is it all cut off? See, I thought I had this. Hang on a second. Allow me to just go in here and perhaps just... all right, I'll do a little editing just to make sure that you can see this, just to make it better. Hang on, let me put it down, and I'll get it. And allow me to... I'll fix it. Hang on, I'll just open it up a little bit. Yeah. How about that? There we go. It's not quite perfect, but maybe, look at it. You're watching me change this on the fly. Look, are you impressed? Oh, see? Screwed it up, ladies and gentlemen. It's see, you can see it. It takes time to make these things work. But as you watch me do this on the fly, oh, man, it's a little harder than I thought. Oh, see what I've done? I'm sorry about that. Let me just read the damn article, for God's sake. Back in March, Paul Schrader caused a bit of a stir when he wrote a Facebook post condemning the producers who stopped production on his film The Card Counter, starring Oscar Isaac, Ty Sheridan, Willem Dafoe, and Tiffany Haddish. It was day 15 on a 20-day shoot when a day player on the set was diagnosed with the coronavirus. Paul says, "Myself, I would have shot through hellfire rain to complete the film," he claimed. "I'm old and asthmatic. What better way to die than on the job?" This wasn't the first time the filmmaker roused indignation on social media. After writing last year he'd have no problem casting Kevin Spacey if Spacey were right for a part, Schrader's First Reformed distributor forbade him for posting anything between his Oscar nomination for Best Screenplay and the awards ceremony. After the Oscars, he jumped right back into the pit. Not that he perceives himself as a provocateur. It's just that his instinct to say what others won't, sometimes for good reason, has gotten him where he is, and passionate responses, pro and con, embolden him. The Schrader I've known for years is a deeply moral man with a deeper dislike of hypocrisy. Since his famously Calvinist Midwestern childhood, he has ventured creatively anyway into the darkest areas of the psyche. When Taxi Driver, for which he wrote the script, won the top prize at the Cannes Film Festival, the audience reacted with boos. And even today, the movie spurs angry disagreements. It was a partial inspiration for the controversial Joker, which Schrader will not publicly discuss. As a director, his films, among them Blue Collar, American Gigolo, Cat People, Light Sleeper, Autofocus, The Canyons, and last year's stunning First Reformed, differ hugely in setting but are thematically of a piece. People keep things in for various reasons and then suddenly don't. I'm grateful that Schrader was willing to share his thoughts and feelings by phone from his house north of New York City. The following interview, taken from 2 separate conversations, was edited for length and clarity. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'll read some of it. Are you working on your film right now? It's Saturday, but yesterday I was. How does it feel? Well, it's my 3rd film with this editor, so we know the rules. But you've always been in the same room before. We see each other and we see the screen, and eventually we'll be in a room together. We're working on several things. One is a standard work in progress. Another is a product reel, because they're talking about having a virtual can where you can sell your product reels. And the 3rd thing, I'm working on what I would have been if I'd lived. What the hell does that mean? Well, I've done all the big dialogue scenes. I have a number I haven't done, a number of prison scenes, and I can mock those up by using Google Images and getting Oscar Isaac's voice to say dialogue, and I can sort of show what the film would have been if I hadn't died before finishing it. So that's your worst case scenario? Schrader has tested negative for COVID-19. Yeah, but it's also part of finishing the film. Essentially, it's a form of previs. You know what previs is? I don't. Previs is an animated storyboard. The way they can make all of these high-tech movies now is they previs them. They shoot them, they edit them, they re-edit them, all in advance of production, and then shoot them with actors against green screens and have the previs animations running simultaneously. The director is watching the previs animation and seeing the actor in the real environment, even though the actor is not in the environment. About what percentage of his shooting is finished? About 80%. So all the big stuff is actually done. I wanted to muscle through in March, but it would have been unethical. You would have still done it, though. I was ready to do it. I was ready to work right over the weekend. But we were in casinos in Biloxi in Mississippi, and the casinos closed down Tuesday, and we shut down on Friday. So even if I had decided to muscle through, I wouldn't have been able to. You had the momentum, and you just thought, we'll get through this. Nobody was sick. We had a scene with 500 extras, and one of them reported back that he was positive. At that point, you have all kinds of legal implications. If you keep shooting and hide the fact, and then it comes out, that's a hell of a liability. Well, that's a hell of a moral responsibility, too. Yeah, well, I was more worried about the legal liability than the moral one. That's going to sound very callous. I just had a long conversation with Michael Mann. I knew that Michael was shooting a TV series in Tokyo Underworld. He had to shut down, and he was totally opposed, and he was in the same situation I was, which is, you can keep shooting, but you're going to be the only one on set. So he had to come home, too. But, that's the way it is with film directors. They're all alpha types. You're the general who wants to send people into battle, no matter what the odds are? No, you're the general who wants to lead people into battle. Because you would have been out in front? Absolutely. You say, if I'm willing to die for this, you should be too. That doesn't sound as good to others as you'd think it might. So I drove back from Biloxi, and I've been out of human contact. Who's in the house with you? Well, my daughter just came up from the city, and I have a dog who is the most loved animal on earth. But I'm doing this thing where I'm calling people I haven't spoken to in a long time. They're so happy. I just called up Pat Resnick. She wrote 9 to 5. I called up Paul Jasmine, who's kind of a Bruce Weber-like photographer who did the ad campaign for American Gigolo. I called up other people I've worked with over the years, and they're all so appreciative. They say, I never thought I'd hear from you again. This is the greatest excuse in the world, to talk to people who you used to know. Just call them up, and you say, how are you doing? And they immediately understand why you called. We can all be lonely together. I knew Michael Mann quite well about 35 years ago. I called him up, and the first thing I said was, it's Paul Schrader. How you doing? And he immediately responded, oh, thank you for calling. Whereas in another time, Michael would say, what do you want? You have quite a cast in the card counter. What's it about? Oh, it's another one of those Schrader movies. Meaning Oscar Isaac as God's loneliest man. He's the guy in the room wearing a mask waiting for something to happen, and the mask is his occupation. In this case, it's a professional poker player. You've never done a gambler movie, have you? Yeah, and this isn't one either. I don't give a damn about gambling. I don't give a damn about boxing. I don't give a damn about taxi driving. These are all just metaphors. What I try and do is if there's a problem that's bothering me, then I try and find two concurrent metaphors. One metaphor may be, in fact, the problem. So the problem is loneliness, and the metaphor is the taxi cab. The problem is loss of faith, and the metaphor is climate collapse. The problem is midlife crisis, and the metaphor is drug dealer. I find these two sorts of things that are sort of alike, but not at all alike, at all, and run them alongside each other until one sparks starts jumping. So the two things on this one, I was worried about the problem of punishment. If you're truly guilty, is there any end to punishment? Can you ever be punished enough? This is a nice Calvinist problem, and we know the answer to it. What is a sin? Well, that's when it gets interesting. I was looking at the World Series of Poker. I said, there's a blankness there. That is the blankest world. They're just sitting there 10, 12 hours a day running numbers through their heads just like slot players are. It's a way to not exist and pretend you're existing. So what kind of a person would choose that kind of occupation to not exist if he was under guilt? Then I said, of course. There's only one guilt sufficient in our times. It's Abu Ghraib. My guy was one of the torturers. And not only one of them, he loved it. He was enjoying it. And he went to jail for 8 years. Did any of those guys go to jail in real life? Yeah, five of them did, but only the ones in the pictures. Nobody who wasn't photographed went to jail. Lindy England, did she go to jail? Yep. And Charles Grainer went for 6.5 years, but none of the guys who instructed them, none of the guys who paid them served a day. So that's my guy. He goes from casino to casino following conventions. He likes police conventions because cops are bad gamblers. They all think they know better. He's just waiting for something to happen. Just like in Taxi Driver. Days go by. Every day like the last day. Then something happens that will define his nothingness. He's at a police convention in Atlantic City. He wanders into this lecture hall and Willem Dafoe is giving a lecture on new advancements in facial recognition and lie detection to take interrogation to the next level. He's feeling more and more uncomfortable as he's listening to this, and there's a young kid, Ty Sheridan, who's looking at him across the room. Finally, he can't stand it anymore, and he gets up and leaves, and the kid follows him outside. He says, do you recognize him, the lecturer? And Oscar lies and says, no. Ty says, well, here's my name. I'm staying at this hotel. If you want to call me, call me. He goes to his motel room, and that night has a dream of Abu Ghraib, of what he went through. He gets up at 3 a.m., he calls the kid and says, okay, come down, what's your story? It turns out the kid's father was also a torturer and was also taught by that guy who's insane, but still out there making money. Well, why I chose to share that with you is I've always been a Paul Schrader fan. First of all, I'm not going to read any more of this, but I wanted to get to the part where he talks about the movie because it sounds interesting to me. But I love Paul Schrader. I've been watching his movies for, 40 years now. And those are the movies he directed. And they're not even the movies that he wrote. But as a writer-director, he's always, look, some of his movies, I don't know about the Canyons. I love Bret Easton Ellis. I love Paul Schrader. Do I know why he did it? I don't know. I mean, come on. But still, I just put the interview in the live chat. Check it out. But I thought it was interesting. Because in this day and age, Paul Schrader as a director was directly affected by this. I mean, being 15 days into a 20-day shoot, admittedly a very short shoot, but you've prepared. Paul Schrader's a guy in his 70s. And suddenly the movie could be his last movie. He doesn't know. The movie he's working on that means so much to him. Suddenly, boom, end of story. No more movie. And he doesn't know if he's going to be able to shoot it again. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, man, I would have loved to have been in a situation. I would have loved to have been on a set for at least 15 days. Hopefully he'll finish the film. But, yeah. And now, a third story. I feel like I'm Ira Glass trying to steer you guys in some weird direction. But, I was just always thinking about Hollywood. Here's another totally unrelated sort of a Hollywood story that I thought was interesting. And if you watched Quentin Tarantino's film, of course, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, you all know Musso and Franks. Hollywood's Musso and Franks Grill files federal lawsuit against its insurer for not covering pandemic losses. This was published today at 9:16 in the morning on Deadline. It was written by Bruce Herring. First of all, if you live in LA, as I do, Musso and Frank's is one of the last remaining Hollywood restaurants that has been around for decades. Classic Hollywood. We, of course, did see it in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood from the late 60s, but it was there a lot longer than that. And if you go there, it's like being in a crazy time warp. But I like Musso and Frank's. But anyway, and again, we're going to read this about many different businesses from all over the world, not just in Hollywood. But I just figured this is a microcosm of where I lived, so why not share it with you? In a move that will be closely watched by restaurants and other businesses, the iconic Musso and Frank's Grill in Hollywood is suing its insurer for not covering pandemic losses. Like other businesses, the restaurant closed in March because of the economic lockdown to flatten the disease curve. It was the first closure ever for Musso and Frank's, which ironically was founded in 1918, the year the Spanish flu ravaged the world. The restaurant is one of Hollywood's premier power lunch and dinner locations, with a long list of celebrities who've dined there. Musso and Frank's is suing Mitsui Sumitomo Insurance Company USA, a New York-based firm, for breach of contract and bad faith for not covering the losses. The family-run business kept its 84 employees on payroll and will face an uncertain future, as will many businesses when the state reopens. Musso has received some funding from the Small Business Administration's Paycheck Protection Program, but the family claimed in reports it is still sustaining six-figure losses and it has not participated in takeout or delivery orders. No employees or management contracted COVID-19. Another ironic, how funny, a Freudian slip perhaps? Another iconic Los Angeles restaurant shared better news on its Facebook site. Hello, friends and family of Dan Tana's. We just wanted to give you a quick update. Dan Tana's is in West Hollywood and is a steakhouse, and it's very good. And it's just like Musso and Frank's. It's a long-time mainstay of Hollywood. We've all been keeping Mike, our worldwide known bartender for over 50 years, in our prayers since he was first diagnosed with COVID-19 a month ago. He's finally on the road to recovery. We will still open soon for delivery and pickup and hope to see you even for seconds with masks and gloves on. Soon will come the day that we fully open our little yellow house. Stay safe, stay healthy, and see you at your home away from home. Your always family of Dan Tana's. So, not quite the apocalypse, but certainly a strange time we live in. And I choose to believe that we are all going to be better off for it. We're going to be better off. We've learned something. We will move ahead and continue on. And what I really wanted to say is tomorrow or Monday's 400th episode of Robservations, we passed 2 million views on this channel last night. That is right, ladies and gentlemen. The Burnettwork passed 2 million views. Now, I get it. You know, a lot of people are going to be like, well, you know, Rob, Gangnam Style had over 1 billion views, and you've just had 2 million views, and you've been on for a year and a half. This is true. This is true. And there are some people that are just going to be like, 2 million views. I cannot believe that this channel has 2 million views. And I wanted to thank all of you. All of you. All of you imagination connoisseurs who come every day, the people that have supported this channel on in every way, whether it's sending me videos like Dieter sent me another video. I've got more videos I'm going to play on the 400th show. People like Roberto Suarez, who I've actually met in Portland. People like Willow Yang, who write letters. People like Vesna, who's been here almost since the beginning. I mean, there are so many people. Ian Samuels, who has something to say about almost any subject. Writer B.L. Alley, who just desperately wants me to throw away his book because he's going to send me a better version of it, which I can't. But all of the people, all of you who have been here from the beginning, and some of you have come in late, and some of you who are newcomers, I cannot thank you enough for being here and for this community and for during the time where we've watched these. I mean, these are crazy times, people. But you guys and girls and gentle beings, however you identify, whatever you consider yourselves as being, all I know is that you're all of you, imagination connoisseurs who are part of this, the Post-Geek Singularity community, and I am forever humbled, and I am forever in your debt for teaching a middle-aged white cis male with one foot in his grave, teaching me a new exuberance and a new thoughtfulness, and basically you're making me have a really good time again. I mean, I'm having more fun than ever before, maybe, and whining about movies with Elizabeth and how you've embraced her being part of this has been wonderful. And I have to say that even during this global pandemic, I cannot believe how everyone who is part of this community has come through and made me, feel terrific. Not just about myself, but about the world in general and about humanity. So give yourselves a golf clap. And as we pass 2 million views, I just wanted to say thank you before we get into show number 400, which is going to be a totally different kind of a show that's going to be more focused on other people. You're not going to hear me talk as much. I know you're like, oh, what a terrible tragedy. Come on. But so thank you all for that. And let's just jump into what you all have to say now. So this is my long roundabout thank you for 2 million views, which we passed overnight because of you guys and girls and gentle people and all of you imagination connoisseurs. And the fact that even in the dying of the light, we rage against the dying of the light, which I think is pretty cool. So thank you all for that. Now, that is true, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see what everyone has to say, because certainly there is a lot going on here, and and you guys have many things to say, and let's see in fact what you are saying. And hang on, let me go there. Let me put you all on notice. So, let's see. I don't know how far back I go. I'm going to go back far. More than I did. I read Felix Leiter's character. The World's Greatest Detective. Oh, I think I read those. I read those yesterday. So, we are at Timbula the Spider Monkey. Sent in a very nice super chat. Thanks, Tim. Getting in early to say congratulations on the 400th, Rob. Glad to have come along with you for the ride. Wish I could send you a case of Coopers from Down Under. Well, cheers to that idea. Cooper's is a very good beer from Australia. Calvin says, why don't the Nazis just kidnap Laszlo and bring him back? They do that kind of stuff all the time. Anyway, also, Rick hands him the papers. Who does Laszlo show them to? That's a very sly way of referencing Casablanca, so thank you for that. That's a good question, but, at the time, I believe that there was still... I don't know if the war... I don't remember exactly when Casablanca was... Let's check the newfangled internets. The newfangled internet. When? What? Let's ask. Because it came out in 42, I think, right? 41, 42? I think 42. What year does Casablanca... Oh, by the way, I love it when I'm not the first person to ask. Okay, so Casablanca... Well, hang on. Oh, wait. Period of time is Okay, it's... Oh, all right. Wait a minute. It still doesn't say when... What is the setting of Casablanca? French rule. Okay, so Morocco is still under French rule. So they probably had to... The Nazis couldn't just storm in because, the French still handle it all. I guess. I think so. I mean, wouldn't that be what it is? I guess. We'll see. Who knows? But I like that. I think, Calvin, that's why they couldn't just go in, and the Nazis couldn't just do whatever they wanted in Casablanca. It was still under French rule, and maybe hostilities hadn't broke out yet. I don't know. Doug Tonovian sends in a super chat and says, your favorite doo-wop song? I have an answer to this. I have an answer to this. The El Dorados, ladies and gentlemen, the El Dorados At My Front Door is my favorite doo-wop song. There you go. There you go. Jason S. sends in a tip and says, I think that the Back to the Future plot hole debate is not that good. When Marty went back to the future, his parents didn't just see him for the first time as an adult. They would have already been raising him since he was a little baby, watching him grow up for years. I agree. The smart plot hole debate is that when Marty slightly altered his past, he shouldn't then exist, as everything has to be the same up until the moment of his conception. That always bugged me about sliders consistently running into their parallel selves. I don't know if that's true. I mean, maybe that just because George McFly was now a science fiction writer and successful, did that mean that Marty wasn't conceived at the exact same time? I mean, sure, time was tweaked a bit, but I don't know. It's a good question, though, Jason. I like the way you think. It's very cogent thinking when it comes to the time travel conundrum. Mystic tipped $1. How you doing, Mystic? Thank you for that. Nick Markins sent in a super chat. Thank you, Nick. That was very nice. Hello, Rob. One of my favorite science fiction movies from the 1950s is Invasion of the Body Snatchers. I've never seen the 70s remake. I've heard it's not good. What? You've heard it's not good? What are your thoughts on the original? Do you like it? Okay, first of all, I love the original. Don Siegel directed Invasion of the Body Snatchers. The 1970s Invasion of the Body Snatchers is one of the finest remakes of all time. You must watch it. It takes place in San Francisco. I love it. Philip Kaufman, who later went on, he came up with the story for Raiders of the Lost Ark with George Lucas, but he also directed The Right Stuff. Oh my God, Invasion of the Body Snatchers is one of the great modern, certainly great science fiction remakes, but it's one of my favorite science fiction movies ever. And I love it so much, and I've said this on the show many times before. What's so great about Philip Kaufman's 1978 Invasion of the Body Snatchers, which Jeff Goldblum, Leonard Nimoy, Donald Sutherland, Brooke Adams, come on, man, it's great. Or as Elizabeth says, come on, man. I can't do it. Like, one of my favorite things Elizabeth says is when I do something and she's like, really? She says, come on, man. But I can't quite get the man. Come on, man. Like, nah, it's not right. I can't get it. Only she can do it the way she can do it. It's great. Maybe I'll make her say that tonight on Elizaviews, whining about movies, when we watch or we bring to you The Triplets of Belleville. So, Nick, get on that, son. Invasion of the Body Snatchers. There's a great Shout Factory disc. I think maybe it's Scream Factory. Get it, get it, get it. You must get it, get it, get it. Timbula the Spider Monkey Tim is back again on the topic of perfect movies that came up yesterday. The only one I considered to be perfect and completely without flaw is the Australian film The Castle. I like The Castle. However, I'm sure my views on it are due to it being about common Aussie folk. Have you seen it? I have seen The Castle, and I really like it. And yes, it is about... there's a lot of... Look, the Australian film industry, I'm a huge fan of. I've often told the story about how I made my 8th grade anthropology class watch Peter Weir's film The Last Wave over 2 days, and they wanted to throw me out of my junior high school. They shouldn't have, because I love The Last Wave. I love the whole Aboriginal dream time was amazing to me. And when I finally saw The Right Stuff when it came out in 1983, there's a great scene with Aboriginals, Australian Aboriginals in it. So yeah, man, I'm telling you, I love Australian movies. You guys all have to watch Stone. You want to watch a great Australian exploitation film, Stone? I'm off topic, Tim, but yeah, I did like The Castle. I understand it's about common Aussie folk, you know. It's not like Breaker Morant or something like that. I get it, but I like The Castle. Tim also goes on and says, also, did you see the post I tagged you in on the Facebook group with the link to Space Battleship Yamato t-shirts? I might have bought 3 or 4 shirts, and the people who ran the page tell me that an Akira Yamamoto shirt is coming. Oh, yeah, I'll get that. Bruh. I did buy one of those shirts. But you know what? I'll tell you which one I got. I got the Cosmo Navy shirt, because I like to get the t-shirts that aren't overtly obvious. Now, it's got Space Battleship Yamato on the back, but I had to get the Cosmo Navy shirt logo because the people who know. Of course, I had to buy that. That was dope, and I want to thank you for putting that up for me. So thanks, Tim. Thanks for that. Willow is here. Willow with her daily support of the channel, which I love. Willow says, which movie do you think had the most realistic depiction of an apocalypse? When they make more apocalyptic movies in the future, they better show people fighting over toilet paper. Well, you know, it's funny because I kind of like one of my favorite movies about the apocalypse, and it's one people don't know about, is, of course, The Rapture with Mimi Rogers. And I love The Rapture. It's a quiet movie about the biblical rapture. I mean, when people talk about apocalyptic movies, the comedy, This Is the End, I love that film. I love it. But, I mean, people fighting over toilet paper, yeah, it's true. We are. But I don't, again, I think this time, I choose to look at this time as something that's more uplifting than anything else. But, yeah, apocalyptic movies, and to me, War of the Worlds, the original War of the Worlds, because of the scene of the priest getting vaporized by a Martian death ray, that movie is more apocalyptic, and it's burned into my brain because, to me, that was the death of religion and the death of belief. And while I'm not the most religious person in the world, once the human capacity for imagination and belief or whatever, dreaming, is taken away, and I've often looked at one of the things that I've liked about, look, I understand religious conflict has been the bane of humanity since, you know, we started believing in sun gods or whatever. But on the other hand, there's one thing I've always loved about religious belief, and that is it deals with imagination, and it deals with the awe and wonder of the universe, which I think is tremendous. And whether you choose to believe in a higher power or whether you choose to look into the infinite void, there is awe and wonder there. And to me, Apocalypse Now, to me, War of the Worlds was one of the movies in my childhood that once I saw that a priest could die by Martian heat ray fire, I knew that all bets are off, but I also knew that the human spirit would triumph even in the face of our beliefs being destroyed, literally being destroyed in front of us, burned to a crisp. So I don't think that was realistic, but The Rapture probably. In terms of a real apocalyptic movie, Mimi Rogers, check it out. Check out The Rapture. Senor Ashish is here and says, Star Wars always loses me. And whatever verisimilitude is left, whenever a new planet is introduced, why do all the planets have to be one ecosystem, i.e. Mustafar is erupting volcanoes and lava beds, Anakin and Obi-Wan should have instantly broiled into shard husks. Well, I look at it this way. I think it's only they're at the one oasis spot. I mean, look, to be honest, look at Mars. I mean, not exactly a green belt on Mars. There's polar ice, sure, but for the most part, that planet is a desert. And until we see, I mean, we here on Earth are very, very lucky to have as many different kinds of landscapes as we do. So yeah. So I don't know. I mean, they might have broiled, but maybe it's a low. Maybe it's magma that's just on a low simmer. But you're right. I mean, but I've never looked at Star Wars to have necessarily verisimilitude. Star Wars is a movie I love despite its lack of verisimilitude. Because it's space fantasy. Look, there's sound in space, so I'll buy into it. I buy into the fantasy. But I understand. It's always bothered me where one planet has only one biosphere or whatever. I don't like that either. Evan Newman sends in a tip and says, Rob, would you consider the ending of The Ninth Gate to have apocalyptic implications? Watched it for the first time in over 10 years recently, and I still love it. By the way, has Johnny Depp stopped by to compare his copy of The Nine Gates to yours? Well, what Evan is referring to, first of all, I love The Ninth Gate. I love Roman Polanski's Ninth Gate. And I know people are like, well, Rob, it doesn't have the kind of ending I want. It doesn't matter. I still love that movie. It's great. Love it, love it, love it. But The Ninth Gate is about a man who's on a quest. It's a movie about books. It's about books and the devil and belief and all those things. What I considered apocalyptic, the ending apocalyptic. You know what? I don't. And I'll tell you why. One of the things, as much as I've read horror fiction, I've said this many, many times. One of my problems with horror novels, and especially when you have demons coming up from the depths of hell or Satan himself or whatever, I've always thought to myself, okay, so let's say the battle of the apocalypse comes or whatever, and Satan wins and he takes over the world. Like, what's he going to do then? Is he going to repair everyone's plumbing? Is he going to pay for public schools? Like, what's he going to do? And even if you are banished to suffer the eternal damnation of hellfire, at some point you're going to get up and you're going to be like, oh, well, it's been 4,000 years and in my eternal damnation, and I'm used to it. I'm over it. So then it wouldn't be eternal damnation anymore. I mean, I've always thought that, well, the one thing about going to hell, if you went to hell, and if you're going to suffer the fires of the damned forever, there would at least be comfort in that. But because at some point you'd be like, well, at least I know it's coming. You get up today, by the way, it's the premise of a horror script I've been writing on and off for years. But this day, today, we don't know what's going to happen. That insecurity and that not knowing what's going to happen every day, that's what's maddening. When you have eternal damnation for the rest of time or the rest of existence, there's at least some solace to be had there, because at least you know what the next day will bring. More eternal damnation. We don't have that now. 3 months ago, would you have ever thought that 20 million Americans would be out of work? 53 Americans would have been dead in the last 70 days. The world would be shut down. We didn't know that 3 months ago. But here we are. So, I would love it if Johnny Depp stopped by. But you know what? The only reason I have a copy of The Nine Gates of the Kingdom of Heaven is because of Cal at Swack Props. S-W-A-K or S'-W-A-K. Swack Props. Cal is, you know what? I don't have my Nine Gates. It's not within, I can't grab it. Oh no, I moved Rorschach's journal. I moved. So for those of you who don't know, for new subscribers, there is an imagination connoisseur named Cal from Swack Props. If you go to his Etsy store, and all he does is make unbelievably beautiful versions of books that appear in movies. And they are, he's bequeathed me with two. Because I couldn't believe that somebody actually made a prop replica of the Nine Gates from the Ninth Gate. It spoke to me. Clearly, he and I park our shuttlecrafts in the same shuttle bay. It was amazing. But if you go and you look at his Etsy page, he sent me a replica of Rorschach's journal from Watchmen. He's done a Grail diary, Henry Jones's Grail diary from Last Crusade. I mean, his work is unbelievable. And if you want to give somebody, look, it ain't cheap. Why would it be? It's a lot of work. But if you want to give somebody who's a movie fan, who's an imagination connoisseur, a really interesting, unique gift, Swack Props, Cal's books, you can give it to somebody. They'll always have it on their desk at work or whatever. It's a really cool thing to have. And the fact that he did the Nine Gates of the Kingdom of Heaven, oh my God, how cool is that? But, I haven't answered the question. Is the end of the Ninth Gate apocalyptic? No, what I was going to say is that I really believe that the only apocalypse that's ever going to come, now sure, the sun could explode and we might get like in the movie Knowing, when a solar flare comes and eradicates Earth. That's an apocalyptic event. But I think a real apocalypse is not the end of the world. The real apocalypse is a personal transformation of some kind. And I think it's metaphoric. At the end of that movie, now that Johnny Depp is being led into a larger world, I think it's apocalyptic for him. For his Dean Corso is the name of the character that Johnny Depp plays in the movie. So I think it's a personal apocalypse. Sadhu's Screening Room sends in a tip and says, speaking of The Last of Us, this week's video essay is about the game. I will send it once finished. Have you seen Extraction yet? I have not. Being Indian, I love the nods to famous Bollywood songs they included in the fantastic long take action sequence. Stay safe. Well, Sadhu, I think that's very cool. I can't wait to see it. It looks fantastic to me. I know John didn't like it, but a lot of people have. Grace Randolph did. So I can't wait to see it. Ian Brown sends in a tip and says, hey, Rob, regular viewer from the UK. I love Space 1999. The Eagle Transporter is the greatest spacecraft in sci-fi. Discuss. It's close with the USS Enterprise refit. I have the Brian Johnson Eagle. You have too. All right, Ian, my man. All right. Since you brought it up, all right, let's talk about the Eagle Transporter. So there's a company, first it was called Product Enterprises, and it's been around for a long time. And they made like 12-inch Eagle Transporters. For those of you who don't know what an Eagle Transporter is, wait a second. Allow me. Hold on. Well, I'll show it to you because you can see it. It's actually right over here. So this is, let me put this up. This is the Eagle Transporter from Space 1999, designed by Brian Johnson, who did the visual effects in The Empire Strikes Back. Now, what's interesting about this, if you know Jerry Anderson shows, Jerry Anderson, Thunderbirds, Captain Scarlet, of course, Joe 90, Supercar, Fireball XL5, the Terrahawks. This was introduced in the 1974-1975 TV series Space 1999. And it's very redolent of something NASA would build. It's also vaguely insectoid. And if you saw this, the reality, I mean, this has peak verisimilitude. And in a way, it also is kind of redolent. Oh, hang on. It's not coming out. It's kind of redolent of a Sikorsky sky crane, a Sikorsky or Sikorsky sky crane, in that it's a workhorse. And it looked fairly realistic, as Ian Brown is saying. I have Brian Johnson, who designed this. He has signed this Eagle. And the company out of the UK, 1612, that used to be Product Enterprises, is manufacturing these. You can buy them. They've made 44-inch long studio scale Eagles that cost $2,500, 2,500 pounds. And boy, I want one. Can't afford it. Can't afford that. I can't even justify that. But they've been doing a new line. Product Enterprises did a new line, but they've been doing a new line as well. And they've been releasing them in various individuals or episode packs that, to be honest, I've been buying them all, and they're all here. There's some over there, and yeah. So they're fantastic. I love the Eagle Transporter. As a kid, they seemed real, and the first time I owned one, a company called Dinky out of the UK made two. They made the freighter Eagle that carried nuclear waste, and they made the regular Eagle. But I didn't like the fact that they were like green and blue. And so if you bought the freighter Eagle and you bought the green or blue Eagle, you could switch the undercarriages and you can get an all-white Eagle. But these 1612, they're now making action figures and all kinds of Space 1999 stuff. So it's okay. So Ian, I'm with you. And by the way, I have all of their sets except the first one. I have all the episode sets. I cannot wait to get the Earthbound set with the Christopher Lee's ship. Mukbang Review sends in a super chat and says, any thoughts on the work of Neil Simon? I love the work of Neil Simon. When I was a kid, my mom took me to see The Goodbye Girl with Marsha Mason and Richard Dreyfuss. I loved The Goodbye Girl. I'm a huge Neil Simon fan. He's hit and miss, certainly, but I really like Neil Simon, and I think, as a matter of fact, hang on, let me just jump in, and I don't want to miss this. I don't want to get it wrong, but Brighton Beach Memoirs I really liked. The Odd Couple, of course, obviously. There's so many. What other things I like? Broadway Bound I liked. Yeah. But those are movies that I saw. But yeah, I'm a fan of his humor. Stubble McShave sends in a tip and said, I drink beer with Kirk. I drink tea and discuss philosophy with Picard. I'd talk about moral questions with Janeway, and I'd want Cisco to have my back in a sticky situation. Absolutely, Stubble. But what about Michael Burnham? What about Lorca? Come on, what about Georgiou? What about them? No, I know what you're saying. I'm right there with you. Anthony Gonzalez sends in a tip and says, hey, happy $3.99. I wonder, what did you do on Free Willy? Oh, I was the producer's assistant on Free Willy. So I worked at Warner Brothers in feature production, and Penelope Foster, one of the people I work with in feature production, what would happen is you'd cycle out, and then she went on to produce films, and she was a producer on that with Jenny Lou Tugend and the Donner Company. So she brought me over, and I worked on Free Willy as the producer's assistant. And what was interesting was, my first job on Free Willy was they cast a wide net to find a new actor to be on in Free Willy, to star as the main character, the kid. And so they had this open casting call. And my first job on Free Willy was I ran camera and put kids. They had this huge casting call. That means a cattle call, really. They had hundreds of kids come to Warner Brothers, and we set up in a soundstage a number of different camera setups. And I was running camera, and I was shooting these kids. Jason James Richter? And that's what I did at first. And then they brought me on board. So I was the producer's assistant on the film, and I worked in the production office, and I worked there when Robin Armstrong was the first director and then was replaced by Simon Windsor. So yeah, I was there. So basically you're like a gopher, like a production assistant, but I was able to do cool things. Like, one of the things I had to do was they were doing camera tests. So I was given this is crazy. So I was given a cutout, a black, it was black. It was on some kind of a really, not like cardboard. It was like a heavy duty wood, but it was like more plasticky. So I was given this, it was gigantic. It was a huge cutout of a killer whale. And then I had to paint it white as well, because it was just black. So I went in and painted the white stripes of a killer whale. Then I went to there was a pool on the Warner Brothers ranch that was down the street from the Warner lot. So I went with a camera crew, and I wore scuba equipment, and I was throwing we were doing a camera test, and I was throwing this thing that I painted in front of the camera, and so they could do camera tests. So yeah, I did a lot of it, but yeah, so I was the producer's assistant. I do not get credit, though. I do not have a screen credit on Free Willy, which irked me even now that you've asked that, Anthony. So there you go. Claudia sends in a tip and says, Monsieur Robert, of course you've passed 2 million views. It would really be interesting to do a breakdown of your audience. I think your fan base more closely resembles Gene Roddenberry's vision of 23rd century man than many others. Well, as you know, I've done it before, but I'll do it again. What's great about YouTube is you get instant analytics as to your audience. So I can go to my YouTube studio, and this is sort of interesting, and they actually have, if you go to analytics, they have a audience analytics thing. So allow me to delve into that, Claudius. 95.3% of my audience is male. 4.7 female. Again, I've shown people, if I can turn, I wonder if it'll, hang on, I wonder if I turn this, no, it won't. Here is the age of my audience. I'll give it to you again. And it's, as you can see, we can't really read it, but see that little bell curve right there? The audience for Robservations, 6% is 18 to 24. 25 to 34 years of age, 23% of the audience. The biggest is 35 to 44 is 35.2%. 45 to 54, 26.8. 55 to 64 is 7.1%, and 65 and over is 1.8% of the audience. Now, this is crazy. Here is the top percentage of countries around the world that watch this show. 55.1% are from the United States. 12.8% are from the United Kingdom, 7% from Canada, 3%, Tim, are from Australia, 2.9% are from Germany, Deutschland, Dieter, 1.3% Sweden, and then underneath that, check this out. And these are less than 1%, but there are people here. Here are the countries that this show is watched by. Or people, admittedly, it's under 1%, but still. New Zealand, the Netherlands, Ireland, Finland, India, Mexico, Brazil, Spain, Austria, the Philippines, Japan, France, Malaysia, Poland, Norway, and here's my favorite. 12.8% of the viewers of this show are from countries marked as other. How crazy is that? Crazy. And let me see if there's any other. The average view duration of this show is 28 minutes. Pretty cool, right? The people that watch this show, subscribers, 67%. Non-subscribers, 33%. Come on, you non-subscribers. That 33%, I want that. I want to push till it gives. I want that 33%. If you're a non-subscriber to this show, what are you waiting for? Smash subscribe now. And hit like while you're at it. The likes versus dislikes on this channel are up in the last 28 days. 95.6% of the people that vote like or dislike on this channel hit like. So hit some more, man. Hit some more. Hit like more. So there you go. There you go, Claude. There is some insight into this channel. Fascinating. It is, actually. Anonymous sends in a tip and says, speaking about the end of the world, I really like knowing. I did too. Especially The Last Shot and the Childhood's End miniseries. Have you watched Childhood's End? I have watched Childhood's End, but you know what? I watch it sporadically, and I want to sit down and rewatch it. I liked it. I loved the book. You know, I read the book, Science Fiction Book Club. I loved it. Thought it was good. Jonathan Rowe sent in a super chat and says, Man of Steel is a perfect film. Do you think so, though? I don't know. Is it? I love it. As you know, John Campy and I both love Man of Steel. I wouldn't say it's perfect, though. I don't know. Maybe it could be. The authorship is there. Cultural Inject sends in a super chat and says, on a TV series, who chooses the director for an episode? For example, who decided or directed an episode of Game of Thrones? The showrunner, a producer, HBO, who? Well, having directed 5 episodes of Femme Fatales for HBO, who oversaw Cinemax, I can tell you, the showrunners, the producers picked me to direct, then they had to submit me to HBO, and HBO had to approve it. So the people that pick the directors are usually the showrunners, meaning the producers of the show. Those are who picked. And look, I was given one opportunity to direct Till Death Do Us Part, and it worked out well during the first season. I was told, Rob, you have to finish your episode in 12 hours. You cannot go over. And I didn't. So that worked out well for me. But that's who picks it, is the showrunners. And then, of course, the network does have to approve. So Stub McShave sends in a super chat and says, More American Graffiti is underrated. You know, I saw More American Graffiti in the theater. I haven't seen it in ages. I can't answer that. But, yeah. So anyway. Chairman Mao, Jeffrey Mao, I guess. Rob, if you've already read my letter, my other resubmitted letter, by this point, never mind. But just a kind reminder that you mentioned that you had my second letter to read after the one about Westworld. No worries, as you were backed up 2 days. Also, happy 400th. Well, thank you, Chairman Mao. I don't know yet. I've still got more letters to get through. I don't know if I've gotten through that. I know I've read one, but we'll see. Mukbang Reviews sends in a super chat and says, I wish one of your charities would be reading focused. First responders are important, but I did the Time to Read and would love to support reading-based charities. How difficult was it for you to choose your charities? Well, what Mukbang is asking is that I still haven't figured out. Look, for the 400 show, I've decided to make the lion's share. Obviously, you can't give everything to charity because YouTube takes things. There's even percentages taken out for tips and all that. You have to figure out all of that, all of those things. And also, I've also got to figure out like there's an expense to run this show, so that has to come out too. But I wanted to take John's lead and make the 400th show I wanted to give to charities. And so far, the first charity I've picked, and I think I'm either going to do 2 or 3, maybe just 2. But the first charity I picked, only because I looked into it, is a first responders charity that Gary Sinise set up. I think that's a good charity, and what they do is great. And I think the first responders are people that in this particular crisis. I mean, a charity for reading, I think, is a good idea. And maybe I could do a show once a month and raise money for different charities that you guys would pick. I think that's a really good idea. But I wanted to specifically deal with charities that are dealing with the situation on the ground now. And while I think reading is very important, that's why I picked. But I will have those announced by tomorrow. Mukbang also says, if you missed the Prince tribute on CBS, it will be replayed on CBS in 2 hours. Oh my God, I was watching clips from that. It's amazing. CBS did a whole tribute to Prince. It's amazing. Dirty Nerdy sends in a tip and says, I think Threads is the most horrific apocalyptic film ever. Very grim viewing. Okay, Dirty Nerdy, let me just tell you about. So, back in the 80s, there was The Day After played. If you haven't seen The Day After, Nicholas Meyer, who directed Star Trek II, directed a movie about a nuclear war and a nuclear strike on Lawrence, Kansas, and it's harrowing. But the British made a movie called Threads. And it's basically about a nuclear attack on Sheffield, England, but it's about the outbreak of nuclear war. And by the way, a couple years back, they released a beautifully restored version of Threads on Blu-ray. And would it surprise any of you to know that I have it? Threads, Dirty Nerdy, you are correct, is one of the most harrowing depictions of an apocalypse of nuclear conflict ever. And not only is it harrowing, perhaps if you were to ask me, Rob, what's the most downbeat ending you've ever seen? Threads, if it isn't up there, man, it certainly is close, because Threads is, by the way, I think Threads is great. What it does is amazing, but man, ooh, whoa, that is some not fun shite, to use the British term. That's bad. It's bad, but it's great. It's a great movie, but man, is it downbeat. It is so downbeat. Oh my God. I got some letters, by the way. I haven't even jumped into letters right now, but let me jump into one. This one comes from Burl Horniak. Oh, let's see. Horniachik? Burl Horniachik. Burl, I hope I didn't get that wrong. Canadian journalist Jonathan Kay, who writes for the National Post, The Walrus, Quillette, has done an analysis of places and events where the coronavirus has spread the most. One of his tentative conclusions is that movie theaters appear to be relatively safe. How interesting. And I like Quillette. I read lots of articles there. I have not read this article. Well, heck, since you sent it in, Burl, and that's the extent of your letter, let's go there, shall we? And why not read this letter since you sent it in? Hang on. Let me get this and pull it up, because I can. That's what newfangled technology is for. All right. Now, let me see. Give me a moment. Just a moment. I've just detected an error in the AE35 unit. Let's see. That's a 2001 reference for you. All right. Since you sent this in, Burl, here we go. Let's check it out. So you're seeing this now. This is from Quillette, April 23rd. It was published. COVID-19 super spreader events in 28 countries, critical patterns and lessons. Now, I don't know what I'm going to get from this, but I'm just going to read a little bit of it. In 1899, a German bacteriologist named Karl Flug proved that microbes can be transmitted ballistically through large droplets that emit at high velocity from the mouth and nose. His method for proving the existence of these Flug droplets, or Flugae, I think it's Flug, as they came to be known, was to painstakingly count the microbe colonies growing on culture plates hit with the expelled secretions of infected lab subjects. It couldn't have been pleasant work, but his discoveries saved countless lives. And more than 12 decades later, these large respiratory droplets have been identified as a transmission mode for COVID-19. Flug's graduate students continued his work into the 20th century, experimenting with different subjects, expelling mucosalivatory droplets in different ways. Eventually, they determined, as a 1964 report in the Proceedings of the Royal Society of Medicine put it, that the quantity of expelled Flug droplets varies markedly based on the manner of respiration. Very few, if any, droplets are produced during quiet breathing, but instead they are expelled during activities such as talking, coughing, blowing, and sneezing. A single heavy cough, it is now known, can expel as much as a quarter teaspoon of fluid in the form of Flug droplets. Yeesh. And the higher the exit velocity of the cough, the larger the globules that can be expelled. Yet if Flug were with us today, he might be surprised by how little of his science has been usefully advanced over the last few generations. As Lydia Boraruba, I don't even know how to say that, of the MIT Fluid Dynamics of Disease Transmission Laboratory recently noted in JMA Insights, the basic framework used to represent human-to-human transmission of respiratory diseases such as COVID-19 remain rooted in the tuberculosis era. According to the binary model established in the 1930s, droplets typically are classified as either one large globule of the Flugian variety, arcing through the air like a tennis ball until gravity brings them down to Earth, or two smaller particles, less than 5 to 10 micrometers in diameter, roughly a tenth of the width of a human hair, which drift lazily through the air as fine aerosols. Wow, okay, you know what? This is a huge article. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but man, okay, I'm putting this into the live chat. See, you know what? It's not exactly imagination connoisseur directly related, but fascinating nonetheless. And I think all imagination connoisseurs are indeed interested in science. So there you go, Burl. What an awesome thing. Thanks for that. Thanks for writing in. I hope I did right by you there. So yeah, that's Flug particles. Okay. Mr. Flug. You're a mean one, Mr. Flug. Let's see. This next letter comes from Christopher McCulloch. Mr. Burnett, in any fictional world, no matter how well fleshed out, there comes a point where you run out of explanations for how things work in that world, and it's at that point one of two things happen. One, you're invested in the story and take for granted or supply your own reason why things work. This is why I never question why shooting a torpedo down an exhaust vent destroys the Death Star, or how said torpedo makes a 90-degree turn at velocity. I'm emotionally invested, and I can intellectually come up with reasons for why that may be. Two, you're not emotionally engaged in the story and are therefore still looking for the story to explain things to you, and when the story can't or won't, you disengage your suspension of disbelief. This is what happened for me in the Matrix sequels, and why so many things. I can't even read this. This is what happened to me in the Matrix. This is what happened to me in the sequel Matrix movies, and with so many things in the prequels. People often treat these second scenarios as plot holes, at least how I've understood them. Plot holes are logical failures that exist in the story, not merely things that go unexplained by the story. The exhaust vent that leads to the main reactor in the Death Star, maybe the most famous plot hole in Star Wars, is logically sound. The infallibility of Imperial engineering is not established by the films, but as those movies are watched and rewatched, more people shift into column 2, and things that go unexplained by the movie become labeled as plot holes. I agree with you. I don't think that the Empire, in their hubris, did not believe that a snub fighter would pose a threat. They say it in the movie. They don't think that an exhaust port is a plot hole. They think an exhaust port is an exhaust port. The fact that somebody figures out how to shoot a proton torpedo between the exhaust port and its shielding that'll somehow be able to get down into the reactor. Nobody even thought about that, although it was retconned in Rogue One as being a weakness that was built in. I have to tell you, while I appreciate what they did in Rogue One and I like Rogue One, sometimes an exhaust port is just an exhaust port. And to think that it was a built-in, that bothered me. Your example of Indiana Jones hitching a ride on the U-boat to the island in Raiders struck me. I've seen that movie how many times? And it never occurred to me, ensconced in column 1 as I am. But I have some bad news. This is a plot hole. Not because the U-boat must have submerged, something it would only do at this time done under duress, but because it doesn't logically make sense. What is Indiana thinking when he makes this decision? I'll just cross my fingers and hope I make it on the back of this submarine? It is a logical paradox, possibly still explained away as a desperate act, but the clear difference between what is unexplained and what doesn't make logical sense is still clear. Okay, so what Christopher is saying, obviously... Hang on, I didn't mean to do that. Well, what Christopher is saying is, I pointed out when I was talking about whether a perfect movie exists, I generally consider Raiders of the Lost Ark a perfect film. And I brought up the fact when Indiana Jones jumps off the Bantu Wind and swims over to the German U-boat and finds his way onto the boat to follow the Ark of the Covenant, there's a long distance the U-boat travels and does not submerge, if you want to believe that Indiana Jones is hanging onto the periscope or sitting just chilling on the deck of that U-boat the whole time. Now, I said a lot of people have pointed out to me in the past, how could that happen? I don't consider that a plot hole because I can extrapolate in my own mind. Maybe Indiana Jones knows these shipping lanes and understands that U-boats are making these patrol runs anyway, and understands that usually U-boats don't submerge themselves in this particular body of water. So by going over there, he figures, well, he can make it. But some people think not. And so, of course, Christopher's bringing this up. Look, man, I don't want to blow your mind, Christopher. I still think you can think of Raiders as a perfect movie. I do. I think this dichotomy can explain a lot of nerd angst today. As the stories become more long in the tooth, people start looking at them not as storytelling, but as science, which you shouldn't do with films or stories. Add decades-long continuity that Star Wars and Star Trek have, and you get more details that can add to the burden of disbelief instead of aiding it. Christopher, back on a column, apparently. Well, Christopher, I think what a great letter you write. I mean, I'm always banging on about verisimilitude. It's one of the raison d'etres of this channel. And I'm always looking for those kinds of things. But, yeah. I don't necessarily think that's a plot hole. And to me, a lot of the time, things that people classify as plot holes, I'll never accept them as plot holes. I think that's just what happened. I believe Indy's course of action. In my mind, when I was watching Raiders, I'm like, okay, it is, after all, a U-boat. What is it, 1938? And you know, America hasn't even entered the war yet. Germany is full of themselves, and so, you know, this boat is traversing. They're using less power. They've got important cargo. So I don't necessarily think it's a plot hole. And maybe Indiana Jones knew that, which is why he took that course of action. I just believed he did. So there you go. Stub McShave sends in a tip and says, remember to use gloves if Swack Props gives you a replica of the book from the name of the rose. That dirty nerdy should have sent that in, Stubble McShave. I like. You know what? I'm just gonna have to let people discover that for themselves. Everybody should watch In the Name of the Rose. Check it out. Dita is here. Dita Bastian says, Rob, it's after midnight here in Germany, in Deutschland. Rob, it's after midnight in Deutschland. So it's stardate 4/26. Time for me to remember Dio in concert. If you're planning to show more videos of that dude, you should perhaps give out free earplugs. Who doesn't like Ronnie James Dio? Now, Dieter is under the impression that I just live in my citadel of pop music. But I mean, I do have, if I want to point this out, I do have this awesome special edition of the Cult's Love. And this is a pretty rockin' disc. And by the way, this particular, I mean, look at this. Who doesn't love stuff like this? Billy Duffy, Ian Astbury. I mean, look at it. It comes with a book. And it comes with, I mean, look at this. Look at this CD of love. Extra stuff, extra discs, pictures. I mean, I will always buy physical media of something that I really love. And I particularly love this album. It meant a great deal to me, obviously. She Sells Sanctuaries in Free Enterprise. But this, I didn't realize this is the omnibus. This is the omnibus edition of the Cult's Love. I mean, what can I say? So, Dieter, I can bang my head. I'm just, maybe not to Ronnie James Dio as much, but I understand. I mean, I like Metallica. I like stuff like that. So, yeah, I can't play his videos on this stream, but I can send people links so they can play these videos. Mukbang sends in another super chat and says, congrats on 2 million. Thank you, Mukbang, and you're one of them, so thank you for that. Phage Lives sends in a super chat and says, I should make an alt YouTube channel and make it everything that is opposite of me personally just to throw off random channel stats. I wonder if other people do it as well. I don't know, but that's pretty funny. Channel stats are... Fergal Kelly sends in a super chat and says, Jesus, I'm only part of the under 1%. Boo-hoo. It's okay. The fact is that you're here. We got 2 million views and you're here. That's all that matters. So thank you, Fergal and Phage. Garen Gillum sends in a tip and says, Rob, speaking of 1612, on April 29th at 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, pre-orders open for their Shadow Interceptor with the launch crater base and backdrop. Bruh. I'm going to call, I'll send my email to Angie. I can't wait. Cannot wait. I cannot wait. You know me, I love my UFO and that base. I mean, they're doing the Lord's work, those people at 1612. Go to their website, 1612. 16 is written out as the word 16, followed by 12. Go to their... You know what? I don't even have to tell you. Since you brought it up, Garen, I'm just going to go... Wait, hang on. That's your letters. Yeah. By the way, it's not just Space 1999. It's UFO. It's other things. But 1612 is dope. And by the way, yes, I really want that Lab Eagle. If I had $2,500, I would do it. Is Fergal a lady? Is that what you say, Brian Eng? As I look down, look at this. 1612, creators of classic toys and collectibles. I love them. They're doing a great job. Go to their website, support them. Ooh, look at that. There's a picture of those interceptors, and man, do they look good. And of course, yes, you do. You have to buy 3 of them, as you well know. You have to buy 3 of them. I have to buy 3 of them. We all have to buy 3 of them. So yeah, I'll buy 3 of them. Regis K sends in a tip and says, it's interesting as some Japanese anime and manga start with the end of the world, Akira, Evangelion, instead of finishing with it. Of course, it's a metaphor for the atomic bomb, but still it's interesting. That is interesting, Regis. And I like both Evangelion and Akira, as you all know. I mean, you can't really... Oh, yeah, you can. Can you see it if I go to this thing? Can you see it? No, you really can't. You can't see it. Oh, you used to be able to see it. My Akira box set that I love dearly. I love my Akira manga box set. That's great. Bob Quall sends in a tip and says, understood, no French until 30,000 subs. But maybe you can share our femme fatale, our ace, to say a line or two in French for every $500 or $1,000, or for $50 donations raised for show 400. P.S. Darktown Strutters still available on Amazon Prime. Bob, you're I can't imagine anyone sending $500 or $1,000 for donations. If they did, that would be amazing. But Elizabeth, you know what? I'll have to. She'll be here. I think she's going to be. She does class too, because she's still doing remote classes. If anybody sent in $500 or $1,000 donation for the show, whether it's a super chat or in tip form, I'll bet I could get Elizabeth to come out here and thank the people who sent in French or say something in French. I bet I could do that. I don't know if people would, and I can't promise you. I will have to find out on Elizaviews tonight. Whining about movies, 8 o'clock tonight. We're talking about the Triplets of Belleville. Not only is it a film, well, is it a French-themed movie, obviously, but it's our first animated film, and Elizabeth and I will be sharing a bottle of wine talking about the Triplets of Belleville. So who knows? I mean, I don't know. I haven't talked to her about it, but maybe she would. I don't know. I have another letter here from Christopher Whitfield. Rob, I'm back. That's like, you know what? Sing that we're talking about Apocalypse. When you say I'm back, I'm seeing Randy Quaid in Hello, Boys, I'm back in Independence Day. Anyway, Christopher, maybe you were thinking about that when you wrote I'm back. Here's another letter. This one is inspired by your topic of the perfect movie. I personally believe a perfect movie is any movie that you watch and lose all thoughts of the world around you. The movie sucks you in completely, regardless if you sit in a movie theater or push the play button on a Blu-ray machine. I can't tell you how many times I started a movie, and when the end credits rolled, I was surprised that 2 hours had passed so quickly. And there's a few times it was 3 hours or more. I won't deny that this happened more often as a child and a teen. Perhaps it was the naivete of my youth. Naivete of my youth. As I've gotten older, it seems the experience has slowed, yet it still happens. Sometimes they're the big franchise films, but mostly they're the movies that I'm embarrassed to admit. Cage's Gone in 60 Seconds, Titanic, Need for Speed, and Baby Driver. You don't have to feel bad. Although I have major opinions about the creation of modern movies, maybe I will write a letter about that soon, there are very few movies that excite anticipation in me to see. Most recently, it's only been Top Gun 2. Come on, bro. Everyone's excited to see Maverick. I can't wait. A perfect movie is also a movie you can't wait to watch again. This happened often in the 80s and 90s, but sadly the last movie to excite this emotion was Tron Legacy. Ooh. I was a little disappointed by Tron Legacy, but I love the score. But yeah, okay. I do own the 3D Blu-ray, though. That movie came out in 2010, so there's that. But I digress. On a side note, I would agree that Back to the Future is a perfect movie. Until you mention it, I never thought about the plot hole of Marty and his parents. But in my defense, I remember in my version of the movie, it was absolutely referenced. For some reason, when his dad George says, "Did you hit your head?" I felt this was a direct tie back to his run-in with the car. I did too. Maybe that was more of a fourth wall thing. And when I saw his parents looking to him and Jennifer right after he sees his rad 4x4, they were silently thanking him for the past. Maybe it was me just filling in a solution to a subliminal problem. P.S. Remember, Calvin generally, yes, but as Marty, no. Would you remember someone's face after 30 years? Depended who she was. Oh well, until next time, laters. Christopher Whitfield. Yeah, again, I've never thought of the Back to the Future thing as a plot hole. I just never have. People did. I don't want to take that away from them, but because I know what it's like. I mean, I don't remember people 5 years from now. I mean, you don't know. And things are happening. Muad'Dib is here, spelled Mu as in M-O-O, odd, O-D-D, Deeb, Muad'Dib. I love that, Muad'Dib. It's actually, his name's not really Muad'Dib, but that's what his name is. The subjectivity of film. Can we please stop? Hey, Rob, it's all I can stand, and I can't stands no more. I've been meaning to write to another certain YouTuber with my issue over this idea of the subjectivity of film, but I fear my pleas will fall on deaf ears. Might that be? But my guess is you'll understand where I'm coming from with this. It absolutely drives me nuts when people talk about art forms being subjective. Once an artist has created something, it becomes inherently objective. It's a firm, tangible, measurable item in existence, and there's nothing subjective about it. Now, when it comes to imperfect, fallible, opinionated people, that's where the subjectivity comes in. It's within people's understanding, appreciation, enjoyment, or lack thereof, that is inherently subjective. So I would have no issue with somebody saying that the great thing about the subjectivity of appreciation of film or the subjectivity of opinions on film, but the film itself, just no. I mean, what's the point of film schools existing if there aren't at least, to some extent, some objective measures to what constitutes good films and filmmaking? Dude, we park our shuttlecraft in the same shuttle bay. Art majors, or historians, for example, can walk through a museum and point out why some of history's masterworks are just that. And we accept that. Now I, as a connoisseur, can look upon some of those same masterworks and just not get it. And me not getting it has nothing to do with the piece itself. Hear, good sir. I mean, after all, the art didn't change. Or more specifically, I can absolutely understand what those bona fide art critics are talking about, and yet I can still look upon those pieces and shake my head in amazement that anybody would spend 5 minutes looking at it, let alone countless fortunes acquiring it. So therefore, the subjectivity comes in under the observation and scrutiny, but not in the piece itself. Film is the exact same way. How many of us recognize that there are certain movies that are awful? Like literally and objectively awful. And yet, we love them just the same. Hence the whole guilty pleasure thing. And how many of us sometimes go back to visit some of what are considered cinematic classics and shrug? A recent one for me was Roma. I gazed for about an hour at its cinematic beauty, ready to be enveloped by this gorgeous film that so many critics fell all over themselves about, but I could absolutely appreciate what it was for what it was, and I still couldn't get past an hour of it because for me, it was just so uninteresting. Note, I didn't say boring, but for me personally and subjectively, it was just uninteresting. There's probably people up in arms now about that comment. No. Well, maybe there are, but I know there's people who are not. It's like when you admit to not liking something that somebody else loves, and they scream in incredulity, "Oh my gosh, how can you not like that?" To which I reply, pointing at myself and shrugging, like this is me, not liking it. So that's definitely one of the things I love about this community, Rob. I've been pointed towards many things that may be worth my time and my attention, and I know I won't like a lot of it, but part of being an imagination connoisseur is at least wanting to sample it for yourself. My God, hear, sir. Thank you. By the way, that's just me editorializing. Because how many little hidden gems out there will pique our interest? But don't come at me about the films themselves being subjective. I'm sure to some extent it may be just a semantics thing, but in my opinion, yes, my subjective opinion, semantics play a huge role in art critique. After all, after I critique something, I want people to know what I think about it and not have to endlessly go back and explain what I meant to say I thought about it. Anyway, Rob, looking forward to your 400th. Keep on keeping on. Muad'Dib. Well, Matthew, what a Muad'Dib. What a fantastic letter. Love that. Look, people's opinions are subjective, but I think, like you said, the film itself, there is film that is objectively great. I believe that, and I don't think that all people's opinions, all people's opinions are not necessarily great, or well considered, or understood, or worth listening to. Everybody will have an opinion, and I think if you've made a movie, the best thing to do is get people from all walks of life, people that love movies, people that don't love movies. It doesn't matter, but you want a consensus of opinion. And when you show people your film, there are people outright. When I've gone to test screenings, there are people who say things to me that I immediately dismiss, that I understand. God bless them, but I understand that they're not astute film viewers, so their opinions don't help me. But there are people that are astute film viewers that might hate what you've done, and you learn from them. I mean, there's things you can't change. When you show a movie to somebody, you're already pretty far down the line. And whenever I show a movie to people, I know I'm very far down the line. So I understand. I mean, films are what they are, especially at lower budget levels. But when it comes to your audience, by the way, is never wrong. You just have to understand that your movie is not going to appeal to 100% of the audience. What you want is for the 20% of the general population that you're trying to make a movie that appeals to them, you want to make sure that that percentage at least finds value in it. But I do think that there is an objectivity to art, and I do think that there is an objectivity to movies. I agree. Now, would any of you be surprised to know that Omar94 sent in a letter? Because he did. Hi, Rob. It's the start of Ramadan, so I'm glad to have some entertainment to watch, like this show, as well as engaging in the live chat with your moderators and other viewers as something to pass the time. Now to my question. You've probably answered this before, but since you're a huge James Bond fan, which James Bond do you like the most? I've never been a James Bond fan, only liking 4 of the 24 films released. What? Dr. No, From Russia with Love, Goldfinger, and Casino Royale. I think From Russia with Love is still to this day the best Bond film by a mile. Let me interrupt Omar and editorialize. I think From Russia with Love is the best example of an adaptation of Bond novels. I think From Russia with Love is probably, if you distill what James Bond is and when it was written and all that, From Russia with Love is, I think, the finest distillation of the Bond franchise. I agree with you there. Several people who have worked in the Bond series, from Sean Connery, Michael G. Wilson, Barbara Broccoli, Timothy Dalton, and Daniel Craig, stated that From Russia with Love is their favorite Bond film. Albert Broccoli considers it one of his 3 favorite Bond films, the other 2 being Goldfinger and The Spy Who Loved Me. Michael G. Wilson even said that every Bond movie getting made is always about trying to make another From Russia with Love, but always ending up with another Thunderball, which I also think is great. I love Thunderball. It's just a little slow, and I think they're epic. The epic battle at the end underwater is because you're underwater, so it's a little lethargic, but I do like Thunderball. You know what? If I could live in a James Bond movie, I would probably want to live in Thunderball. I would like to live on Emilio Largo's boat. I'd like to live with some of the ladies in that movie, if you know what I'm saying. So I like Thunderball a lot, but I like more than 4. I do like Dr. No, but I like From Russia with Love and Goldfinger, and I do like Thunderball, but From Russia with Love and Goldfinger are 2 of my favorite Bond films. I love On Her Majesty's Secret Service. I love Spy Who Loved Me. And by the way, I am a Moonraker apologist. I loved it when I saw it, even though it's a remake of Spy Who Loved Me, which is a remake of You Only Live Twice. You Only Live Twice doesn't hold up for me because it's a little sloppy now. It's hard for me to watch. I like For Your Eyes Only. I don't love For Your Eyes Only. I like Octopussy. I don't love Octopussy. Really like The Living Daylights. I really like GoldenEye. I even like Tomorrow Never Dies. And I like The World Is Not Enough. Don't love it, but I like it. Enjoy it. I love Casino Royale. I like Quantum of Solace for all of its problems. So there you go. Looking forward to No Time to Die. And I want to love it. I do. I want to love it. Let's see. Fergal Kelly says, did someone say I'm a lady? Laugh out loud. I'm Irish. Well, does that mean you're a female or male? Male, does it matter? I love Irish lasses. Redheaded Irish lasses. I mean, that is some knee weakening stuff right there. Don't get Irish. I've met many an Irish girl, and they can be ladies too. So don't be saying that. Dieter Bastian from Deutschland is back, and he sends in a super chat. He says, Rob, you misunderstand me. Free earplugs, not if you play Dio videos, but free earplugs if you play more videos from that dude from Deutschland. Oh, no, Dieter has sent me some great videos. You're going to see Dieter watched my movie Free Enterprise and was not a fan and sent me a great video, which I'm going to play on the 400th show. Yes. Bob Quall says, I meant every 500 or 1,000 cumulative totals or 50 plus individual donations. 50. Ooh, that's a good idea, Bob. I'll have Elizabeth come in like a girl, like the woman who holds up the placards at like a wrestling match or a fight. Round 2. That's a good idea. But you know what? That's something that we're going to have to get Elizabeth to agree to. I don't know if we can do that. She was pretty adamant about her 30,000 subscribers. I mean, maybe we'll pass 25,000 subscribers. By the way, that is a good time to mention I have a giveaway starting on Monday on the 400th Robservations, I am giving away a piece of electronic gear that is valued at $1,000. And it is not yet available to the consumer market. You know what? I'm just going to tell you what it is. I'm going to tell you what it is. It is a JBL. I've talked about this before. JBL 9.1 soundbar. Now, the JBL 9.1 soundbar with Dolby Atmos has a separate subwoofer and two satellite, like their 5.1 satellite. You undock. There's the soundbar is long, and you undock the rear speakers. I'll give you a preview since you're watching today and it's Saturday. I am going to have a giveaway, and the giveaway is going to run from Monday until May 15th, which is my birthday. And we are going to have, it's a little portal that you go through. And how do you enter? How do you enter this thing? Well, you go through the portal, and you will go to the Burnettwork if you subscribe, if you leave a comment, if you go to the website. Just go to the website and comment. If you go and join the Facebook pages, the Post-Geek Singularity or the Whining About Movies page, if you just go through this, you'll just have to go through this app, which counts everybody, and that's all you have to do, and it immediately enters you into this giveaway. And the JBL Bar 9.1 does not get released to the consumer market until May 31st. So I will be giving it away beginning on Monday. So if you want to go and become a subscriber at the Burnettwork and you go through our portal, just subscribe, you will be entered into it. Anybody can enter into it just by passing through. And yes, the more you pass through, the more times you are entered. And it's the retail price is $995.95. But yes, the good folks at JBL, the experiential engagement people at JBL who sent John Campia his headphones and sent me the soundbar to review, which I did, is going to put up another soundbar to give away, a brand new soundbar that will be given away on my birthday, May 15th, to anyone. So that's pretty cool. Anyway, just so you know, I'm telling you now. Stubble McShave sends in a tip and says, if there's one plot hole in Back to the Future, it should be the other way around from their argument. Marty shouldn't remember his old parents after his return to the present time. He shouldn't remember his mother as overweight or his father as a loser. Well, no, because remember, and I love this idea, it's in Avengers Endgame, a time traveler, by going into the past is actually, he's still moving forward in his own life. So a time traveler who goes back into the past, his present becomes his past, and he's going into actually his own future. So he cannot alter. So if you're a person, right? You're a person moving through life, and you travel in time, where you're traveling back to is not your past, it is a past or something. My head's hurting. I don't know if I'm buying that even as I say it to you. Fergal Kelly says, Rob, I'm of the male persuasion. But are you a redhead, Fergal? Or is it Fergal? Fergal, how do you pronounce that? Like Fergal Sharkey? Anyway, it's good to know. Thank you for supporting the channel. Although, you've dashed my dreams of being some, coriander or coriander. Coriander. I always say coriander. Somebody said it's coriander, like the spice. I thought it was coriander, like commander. It's a Teen Titans thing. Anyway, I'm just happy to have you as a part of this, the Post-Geek Singularity community. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, this concludes Robservations, episode number 399. I will not be here tomorrow as I raise a beer, a Elysian Space Dust IPA. There's nothing in this, but I'll raise that glass anyway. This is the last episode before we get to episode 400. I will not be here tomorrow. However, you can go to, let me just point this out. one more time, the Mainframe Live and Online Comic-Con. I will be interviewing Troma's Lloyd Kaufman tomorrow at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. And then, of course, later on, J.M. DeMatteis. I'm very excited to interview him. He is a wonderful man who I've known. This will be at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, or 6 p.m. Central Standard Time, or 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is fantastic. And then right afterwards, stick with me, because I will then be talking to the creators of the comic book series, The Orville, with David Goodman, who is in fact a writer-producer on The Orville itself, David Cabeza, and of course David Goodman was also a producer and writer on Enterprise. He's worked with Seth MacFarlane for a long time. He's a great guy. He's also president of the Writers Guild of America. So there you go. That is all very exciting. That will be tomorrow. So there was no Robservations tomorrow. But if you're just tired of me or miss me, you can find me. If you're tired of me, don't tune in. But if you can miss me, or if you do miss me, again, find me at the Mainframe Comic-Con, which, by the way, is going on right now. So if you go to Mainframe Comic-Con, you can donate to charity there. You can check that out at Mainframe Comic-Con. I guess Mainframe is it mainframecomiccon. I don't know what the actual thing is, but it's going on now. There's still great guests later today. It's not over yet. So I want to thank everybody for being an awesome audience. I want to thank all of you imagination connoisseurs for helping this channel reach 2 million views. You help me every single day. I want to thank my moderating staff for being the great moderators that they are. I want to thank the great Mike Bodden. I want to thank, of course, Detective Jim Boyers. I want to thank the great Greg Smith. I want to thank Louis Yu, and I want to thank Jordy Lyons. And I also want to thank somebody that I haven't given a shout out to, but our own not Detective Jim, but Captain Brad. Captain Brad lost a family member. I met Brad in Wenatchee last year, a year ago, this month. And, of course, Captain Brad, I've talked about him before. He's the captain of a Washington State ferry, and he lost a family member. So thoughts out to Captain Brad, and I hope everyone else sends him good vibes if you see him in the chat. And one day I'm going to make him let me drive a Washington State ferry, and I want to make a 360-degree circle in Puget Sound. It's a dream, Brad. You can help me realize it. Only you can, Captain. And again, thanks to all the imagination connoisseurs out there, all of you for supporting the channel through tips, through super chats, through sending me letters, going to the website. And hopefully it's going to be interesting being able to give away a JBL Bar 9.1, a 9.1 channel soundbar that has Dolby Atmos. And I got to tell you, I'm pretty impressed with it. It's a pretty kickin' piece, and it definitely packs a subwoofer wallop. I mean, obviously, look, if you want to have dedicated, gigantic surround sound system, you got to do that. But for a smaller room, if you want to enjoy Blu-rays, you want to enjoy broadcast TV in surround, it's a pretty great piece of gear. I'm pretty happy with it. It's pretty neat, and it doesn't take up all the space. We will be giving away one starting on Monday. We will be running that giveaway through May 15th, which is my birthday. I don't know if it's going to come by tomorrow. I don't even know if it's come now, but people have been sending me things for months. I'm going to do another unboxing this coming week. I don't know when, but it's happening. I'm doing another unboxing. You guys know how much you love those unboxings. I'm doing an unboxing. So there you go. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I now bring Robservations episode 399 to a close. And remember, every person you meet has a story to tell you have yet to hear, and all you have to do is listen. And I want to remind you, Elizabeth Gwendolyn Bell, the ace, the arbiter of cinematic excellence, she who is that, will be joining me for a bottle of wine here in the Robservatory in a mere 3.5 hours. We will be talking about the triplets of Belleville. We hope you can join us. And with that, I say, have a better day. And I guess you could have a better day if you come watch us later. Thanks for being here. And thank you for bringing this channel to 2 million views.